The Queen was not there when the King arrived at Westminster Cathedral. We have been informed that she has acute sinusitis. The royal family has been the subject of scandal rumors for years, but nothing piques public interest more than unexpected absences from important occasions. It was stated that the Duchess of Kent, Queen Elizabeth's cousin, and the Duke of Kent's wife had passed away at the time of her funeral. One obvious element caught the attention of the globe. There was no sign of Queen Camilla. Her absence wasn't merely a small mistake. It sparked a wave of unnerving speculation and brought up difficult questions. Was it politics, health, or something much more sinister that prevented her from coming? What actually transpired at that solemn parting behind the palace doors? The absence of royalty. The late Duchess of Kent was recently honored at her funeral by the British royal family, a serious occasion that received a lot of attention both domestically and internationally. However, one face that many were expecting was absent: Camilla, the Queen. Her disappearance sparked curiosity right away, not only because the event was significant, but also because she had consistently attended prominent royal functions. To quell popular interest, the palace promptly released an official explanation. They claimed that Camilla had acute sinusitis, which is a painful and incapacitating condition that is not life-threatening. Her Majesty the Queen regretfully has decided not to attend the Duchess of Kent's funeral mass this afternoon. She will keep the Duke of Kent and the entire family in her prayers and thoughts while she recovers from severe sinusitis. The message was well-crafted, empathetic, but uncompromising, preventing any miscommunication. Nevertheless, it had little effect on the rumors that spread very immediately. A lot of people questioned whether this was more than a simple instance of disease. Is Queen Camilla also secretly planning to postpone additional appearances? Since Queen Camilla's absence fell during the royal family's impending state visit that would welcome Donald and Melania Trump, rumors were stoked. Tonight, U.S. President Donald Trump is at Windsor Castle getting ready for a state dinner that the King and Queen are hosting, a politically sensitive, high-profile occasion where her absence would be conspicuous. The palace explained that she carefully weighs optimism against health uncertainties and wants to be well enough to attend. Given the severity of her sinusitis, some people think her ailment is real, while others suspect more sinister intention. Royal observers are divided over whether Camilla's absence is intentional or coincidental, with some speculating that she may be expressing reluctance to participate in the Trump visit for personal or political reasons. A friend of the Queen came forward to put an end to such rumors, adding even more mystery. The acquaintance told the Daily Beast that she would never avoid her responsibilities. She is aware of the significance of this for both her husband and the administration. She works to support him. This remark highlights a basic reality regarding Queen Camilla's function. She has always positioned herself as her husband, King Charles III, and shares the burden of royal obligation. Therefore, her duty is not only to the people but also to him. However, rumors have their own momentum. It rarely ends abruptly once it starts. Camilla has been in the spotlight for years, and this episode is just one more example of how her every action gets magnified. Does her absence from the Duchess of Kent's funeral indicate underlying conflicts in the royal schedule, or was it genuinely a health issue? Is the palace merely controlling expectations in case her recuperation takes longer than anticipated, or is it attempting to avoid a diplomatic blunder? Regardless matter the reality, the story's development emphasizes how delicately monarchy functions in the contemporary world. Royals are supposed to be unrelenting, everywhere, and beyond all personal boundaries, but they are still people. Like everybody else, they become sick, get tired, and occasionally have to retire. The distinction is that their choices have an impact on international, social, and political spheres. This moment is a test of reality and perception for Queen Camilla. She will silence her detractors and reinforce her devotion if she gets well soon and plays her part during the Trump visit. However, the rumors will only intensify if she is compelled to retreat once more, supporting the theory that she may be more selective about her appearances than the palace would like the public to think. All eyes will be on Windsor Castle till then to see if the Queen's recuperation lives up to her expectations. For the time being, the narrative is situated at the intersection of duty, health, and speculation, a situation that the British royal family is all too familiar with. However, beneath the well-crafted phrases, suspicions started to surface. Was this a resurgence of the past, or was this genuinely a health issue? Is her absence at Diana's memorial service and burial connected to this? Let's investigate. Betrayal and friendship shadow. As a timid adolescent, Diana Spencer joined the royal family, ill-equipped to handle the demanding role of marrying the heir apparent. She discovered a strict society that valued formality above empathy and viewed vulnerability as weakness in place of friendliness. With little emotional support from her husband, Prince Charles, and Queen Elizabeth, the fairy tale image soon fell apart. Behind the glamorous public personas, Diana suffered from extreme loneliness. In sharp contrast to the grandeur around her, her loneliness was reflected in her eyes, made evident by her hesitating steps, and reverberated in the quiet of her private quarters. When Diana appeared most in need of assistance, it came from an unexpected source within the monarchy. Her silent lifeline turned out to be Catherine, Duchess of Kent, a woman who is frequently disregarded in royal conversation. Catherine, who had endured the same strict procedures that now choked Diana, held herself with a delicate dignity that set her apart from other members of the royal circle. She chose compassion over judgment, however, and unlike the others, she saw the heavy weight of palace expectation. Instead of making extravagant gestures, Catherine showed Diana the simple kindness she had been lacking. She became her confidant, her anchor, and her listener. The two women were frequently spotted slipping away from courtiers' prying eyes into secret palace nooks or strolling through verdant gardens. They would converse effortlessly, ranging from minor pleasures to the most intense anxieties, and from laughter to tears. Diana at last discovered true friendship, something the crown could not provide in Catherine. Diana had enough faith in her to confide in her about the mysteries that plagued her. She was candid in discussing her fears, her battle to be accepted by a society that expected perfection, and most painfully, her anguish at Charles's growing love with Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana saw Camilla as more than simply a competition. She was the source of her marriage's looming shadow and unending grief from which she appeared unable to break free. Catherine listened without passing judgment. She saw Diana as a kindred spirit, a lady who suffered in quiet while the world believed she was living a dream, and not just an in-law caught up in the whirlwind of royal politics. It was difficult to overlook the two's bond in public. Diana frequently leaned slightly in Catherine's direction at formal events, as if she were getting strength from her presence. Diana appeared to be protected from the coldness that frequently enveloped her by Catherine's serene and comforting manner. Their bond was more than just friendship. It was survival, a brief respite from the coldness of the outside world. Then, however, came that fatal night in August 1997, when word leaked out of Paris that Diana had died in a terrible car accident. Millions of people cried, the world froze in amazement, and tributes came in from all over the world. But Catherine's suffering had a special resonance among the mourning royal. In addition to losing a family member, she also lost the friend who had confided in her about her most vulnerable secrets. While many in the royal circle favored silence, Catherine stood out in the days that followed as the palace rushed to put up a united front. Catherine subtly expressed what others were afraid to express out loud, that Diana's story had ended too suddenly, that some concerns remained unresolved, and that some shadows would not go away. She urged the world to go on. Her thoughts were not a conspiracy, rather they were a burden of love and the pain of someone who had witnessed Diana's suffering firsthand, and knew that her wounds were more severe than the general public ever realized. Camilla was never just another person in Charles's sphere of influence for Catherine. She stood for the scar Diana would never heal, the pain that molded her narrative, and possibly the grief that brought about her untimely demise. Catherine clung to that memory long after Diana had passed away, bearing the weight of unresolved stories and the beauty of their connection. What other aspects of Catherine's kind leadership did Diana find enjoyable? To what extent did Diana find her useful when raising her children? Let's examine the two women's relationship in more detail. An unorthodox friendship. The typical perception of Princess Diana is that of a stunning young lady who is attempting to stay true to herself while negotiating the demands of royal life, while caught in the spotlight. Diana had a select group of confidants, however, who provided her with support, consolation, and the uncommon gift of true friendship behind the glittering tiaras and the newspaper headline. One of them, Catherine, Duchess of Kent, was a pillar of wisdom and warmth in Diana's tumultuous environment. When Diana became engaged to Prince Charles, it was a turning point in their relationship. She was thrown into a world of strict customs, incessant regulations, and unrelenting scrutiny at the age of 19. Few people could really comprehend the burden that was placed on her. Being older and more accustomed to dealing with the demands of royal life, the Duchess of Kent stepped in as more than simply a mentor and advisor, almost like an older sister. She described the minor things Diana needed to know to survive life in the palace, the unwritten rules of procedure. More significantly, she provided Diana with judgment-free kindness, something Diana sorely needed. A friendship formed between the two women that was anything but formal. It was sincere and full of humor. It wasn't just a task or obligation. The rigidity of palace routines was broken by their shared moments of happiness. Diana, who is frequently characterized as timid and delicate, found a confidant in the Duchess. Catherine was able to observe Diana's excitement during the early years of motherhood through their correspondence. Even while her duty as a royal remained complex, Diana would talk endlessly about her two greatest gifts, William and Harry, and the Duchess could sense how deeply fulfilled she was in her role as a mother. In its purest form, friendship is put to the test in trying times rather than happy ones. Catherine remained firm even as Diana's marriage to Charles broke down due to both private heartache and public pressure. Neither did she condemn Diana for her decisions in her quest for happiness, nor did she look away when the tabloids feasted on scandal. Rather, she listened, offered encouragement, and reaffirmed Diana's value. The Duchess of Kent believed that loyalty meant sticking with a friend through thick and thin. The globe was rocked by the terrible events of August. Millions of people were devastated by Princess Diana's untimely death at the age of 36. But the Duchess of Kent experienced an even more intimate sorrow. She had lost someone she considered to be almost family, in addition to a beloved friend. A terrible realization added to Catherine's grief. Her sorrow would not be the only one endured by the royal family, particularly Diana's sons. For the rest of their lives, William and Harry, who were only boys at the time, would have to bear the weight of their loss. Catherine, nevertheless, felt admiration for the young princes. Despite the sadness, she appreciated the care taken to preserve their privacy as they aged and the fortitude they displayed in the face of unimaginable sorrow. She believed that the most crucial approach to honor Diana's memory was to protect their capacity to lead as regular a life as possible. The Duchess of Kent had a profound epiphany when thinking back on her friendship with Diana. Being there exclusively in good times is not what true friendship is all about. It is about understanding without having to choose a side, compassion without passing judgment, and loyalty without conditions, even when marriages fail or everyone else blames you. Diana's passing meant more to Catherine than just a personal tragedy. The monarchy itself was wounded as a result. For years to come, the lack of the people's princess would serve as a reminder of what was lost and what may have been. And Diana continued to be remembered by the Duchess of Kent, not only as a member of the royal family, but also as a close friend with whom she had shared tears and laughter, and who had supported her through the highs and lows of life. Charles was close to the Duchess of Kent, but Catherine and Camilla were far away. Could Camilla's involvement in Diana's marriage be the cause of this? Is Camilla guilty of something? Let's examine Camilla's ascent within the royal family in more detail. Camilla's ascent. The breakdown of confidence. What was once unimaginable started to happen in front of the public in the years following Diana's death. Prince Charles and Camilla's romance which had previously been secret and discussed in tabloids and drawing rooms, gradually came to light. Slowly, what had previously been scandalous became something that was accepted, tolerated, and eventually even applauded. The pair made appearances together at gatherings, their smiles now visible under the bright flashes of cameras rather than being stolen in the dark. It was the tale of love triumphing over adversity for many. Others saw it as an agonizing rewriting of history. Catherine was one of the people who found this new reality the most difficult. Every applause from the audience by Camilla's side and every newspaper headline praising her seemed to exacerbate Catherine's discomfort. She was unable to erase the image of Diana's distressed face, or the tears poured by a lady who had been deceived in both loyalty and affection. Catherine could never bring herself to forget Diana, and she believed that embracing Camilla would require doing so. On the outside, Catherine exuded the poise and dignity that her royal status demanded. At formal events, she stood erect, bowed per convention, and smiled when necessary. However, fissures were visible behind the cautious stance. The truth was revealed in her interactions with Camilla. In their mildest form, the two women's interactions were rigid, short, and characterized by a civility that seemed brittle enough to break at any time. At their worst, their gazes were harsh, their words clipped, and the atmosphere around them became heavy with animosity. Diana herself seemed to hover between them, an unseen presence that was hard to ignore. Diana was Catherine's beloved friend, whose memory she ardently defended. Diana was the specter that would always hover above Camilla, the memory of a triangle of love that no amount of public acceptance could completely dispel. Both women knew it very well. That unspoken reality weighed heavily on both of them. Catherine's forbearance had run its course by the formal announcement stated that she had withdrawn from royal duties for personal reasons. But the truth was far more serious. She no longer wanted to attend events and ceremonies where Charles and Camilla were the main attraction. It felt like a betrayal of the loyalty she still had for Diana to stand in their shadow. Catherine took a strong but silent step back. Her absence became increasingly apparent, and she rarely appeared in public. The distance between her and Camilla grew with each year until whatever civility had once held them together broke down entirely. The royal household went into sorrow at Catherine's eventual death. They dressed in black, paid their respects, and prepared for her last farewell. For the event, it was anticipated that the family will unite. However, one face was noticeably absent: Camilla. The press was given a straightforward explanation: sinus infection. A mild but annoying condition. It's not insurmountable, but it may make appearances awkward. However, many found the excuse to be unconvincing. How could a woman in Camilla's position overlook something so insignificant during such a momentous occasion in royal life? The whispers started almost instantly. Was this a disease? Or was it something else? There were whispers that Camilla was avoiding the icy looks she may encounter, and the silent criticism from people who were all too familiar with Catherine's emotion. Others implied that it was a purposeful decision, hidden behind medical jargon, a means of avoiding a farewell that was rich in history and significance. The absence was not overlooked, regardless of the truth. Rather, it added to the already complex web of Charles, Camilla, Diana, and those who had loved her, further entangling the mystery. Catherine's attitude toward Camilla appeared to remain unchanged in death, just as it had in life, and without her, Camilla's shadow grew even bigger. Long after the funeral bells had stopped ringing, the world was still baffled by this mystery. Why was there suspicion about Camilla's absence? Perhaps history is repeating itself. Why didn't she attend Diana's memorial service and funeral? Let's investigate. Camilla's predicament. Camilla was never really excited to attend the ceremony, according to reports at the time. She had repeatedly expressed her reluctance, privately hoping she could stay out of the spotlight completely, according to those close to the pair. Prince Charles, however, was able to convince her differently. He reminded her that being at his side was crucial in her sensitive role as stepmother to his kids, Prince William and Prince Harry, in addition to being expected of her as his wife. Her presence was symbolic to Charles. It depicted a blended royal family attempting to move forward while demonstrating stability and togetherness. However, what began as a grudging gesture of assistance swiftly devolved into something far more awkward. Already split on Camilla's role in the monarchy, the public sentiment quickly soured.
What may have been written off as small mutterings of displeasure quickly turned into a loud chorus of fury as criticism spread like wildfire. Close friends of the late Princess Diana were among the most outspoken opponents. Diana's confidant, Rosa Monckton, was unreserved in her public remarks. In a scathing statement that resonated deeply with those who still held Diana in high regard, she said that Diana herself would have been shocked to see Camilla at such a ceremony. Monckton went one step farther and used the morally judgmental term inappropriate to describe Camilla's participation. The British public, who had never entirely forgotten their love for Diana, or their resentment of the way her marriage had ended, found great resonance in these comments. Never one to overlook a scandal, the tabloids jumped on the issue with unrelenting vigor. Columns and headlines portrayed Camilla as going too far, reopening old wounds and reminding the country of the love triangle that used to dominate world news. The story was more than a ceremony to the readers. It turned into yet another chapter in the continuous story of Diana versus Camilla, a rivalry that persisted in the public consciousness of the country. Camilla was starting to feel the effects of the pressure by Sunday afternoon. She was reportedly clearly shaken, her poise breaking under the pressure of the criticism. She struggled to hide her uneasiness as cameras flashed and she was subjected to intense public scrutiny. According to the Daily Mail, every action and every glance appeared to be scrutinized. And Camilla, who had always valued seclusion over display, found the experience oppressive. What started out as a regretful obligation, an effort to fulfill her position as a helpful wife, had become an uncontrollable public storm. Camilla was entangled in a web of opposing forces: the royal family's expectations, her personal discomfort about taking on a job so intimately associated with Diana, and the persistent animosity of a populace that was still grieving for the people's prince. Diana's shadow seemed to grow larger than before, a reminder that her impact on the monarchy and the public's hearts was unwavering even years after her death. The ceremony was more than just another royal engagement for Camilla. It served as a devastating reminder of how ingrained Diana's memory was in British society and how brittle her own acceptance was. Still in the monarchy, every negative headline, irate remark, and empathetic nod to Diana only made her feel more alone. In that instant, it became evident that the scars of the past were far from healed, regardless of how much time had gone by. Ultimately, what was supposed to be a straightforward assignment for Camilla turned into a pivotal event that revealed the conflicts at the core of the contemporary royal family. Uncomfortably, she stood between her own reluctance, her husband's commitment, and the eerie reminder that Diana's legacy was more than just history. In a country that had not yet determined whether Camilla actually belonged, it was still alive and throbbing. What impression did Camilla's absence from the burial have on the public? Is there any chance they'll accept the excuse of illness? Let's examine how the public responded to the Queen's absence from the burial. An absence, a final farewell. Many onlookers heard Camilla's absence more clearly than any words. It wasn't only that she didn't appear, it was also what her absence appeared to signify. Interpretations stuck to the air like a dense fog, and whispers soon started to spread. According to some voices, Catherine herself would not have wanted Camilla there if she had been able to speak. After all, this was more than simply a funeral. It was a last act of reverence for a woman who had supported Diana in her lowest moments and was renowned for her loyalty and calm dignity. Many would have felt that Camilla's presence was inappropriate, merely an encroachment on a place of worship that once held the echoes of Diana's most painful injuries. But some had a different perspective. They thought Camilla had made the decision on her own, not because she wasn't invited, but rather because she didn't want to. Ghosts of the past also haunted the imposing and gloomy cathedral. Regardless of how securely Camilla sat on the throne or how many titles she had, the castle was laden with memories of a lady whose shadow Camilla could never shake. Entering that area would have required dealing with a crowd that was still aware of Diana's suffering and might never have forgiven Camilla's role in that tale. Maybe it was simpler to stay away and let silence take her place. Ultimately, the absence turned into a form of presence all its own. Friends and family gathered to bid farewell to Catherine, who was mourned with dignity. But in addition to the sadness, there was a clear sense of what was lacking. The vacant chair where the Queen consort should have been caught people's attention. That vacuum turned into a potent, quiet statement in and of itself. It fueled the notion that this choice was primarily about history and had little to do with health, as the official reason implied. More than any physical illness, Camilla's decision had been shaped by the past with all its suffering and rivalry, and thus, like a circle coming to an end, the story appeared to fold back on itself. On one side was Catherine, Diana's quiet ally and kind friend, who had consoled her when the storm of royal life became too much to handle. On the opposite side was Camilla, the person whose name would always be associated with Diana's anguish and who, no matter how many years went by, would always be portrayed as the other woman. Loyalty and scars that time had never healed separated the two ladies, even in an attempt to simplify and neaten the situation. The palace's official statement was formal and polished. However, it was difficult to keep the truth in check. There was a deeper reality hidden behind the well-chosen words. The battle that started in whispers behind the walls of the palace, in private meetings, and in tears, had never really been resolved. Only in the absences and silences, in the looks of those who still remembered the pain, had it Many others felt Diana's memory was still there in that church, haunting and unsolved. Like a ghost, the moment Camilla stayed away, her story, which was so closely linked to both women, seemed to rise once again. It seemed as though Diana herself was there to tell everyone that some scars never go away and that some rivalries are permanently marked in history. Camilla's absence was therefore more than a matter of personal preference. It served as a reminder that no matter how much time goes by or how meticulously narratives are polished, the past cannot always be changed. Some ghosts won't be quieted, and some stories cling too tightly. What are your thoughts on Camilla's absence from the